Good morning, students. So today in this video, we'll see IP security, that is nothing but security at the network layer. Security at different layers. So you might have already studied the OSI reference model, in which totally we have a 7 layers. So in this video, we are going to see how we can go for providing the security at the network layer. So we can provide the security at different layers. So what are its pros and cons? We'll see first. Security may be implemented at different layers of the OSI model. So it is commonly implemented in the network layer or between the transport and the application layers and within the application. So this IP security is the best known protocol for providing security at the network layer. So there are two main IP security protocols, and their mode of operation we are studying in this video. So those two main IP security protocols are, one is authentication header and another is a encapsulating security payload. So what exactly these two are? What are their IP header packets, information, and how exactly they work? So that are the part we are going to see in this video. So IP security in action. IP security has designed by committee in the late 1990s. It was intended to protect against sniffing, spoofing, hijacking, and denial of service attacks. It provides a best of service including data origin authentication and data integrity, protection from replay attack, data confidentiality, and partial traffic flow confidentiality. The endpoints of the protocol can be two hosts, or it can be two gateways, or it can a host and a gateway combination. So this IP security is basically provides a services like authentication, integrity, then confidentiality, then traffic flow confidentiality, and how to protect from the replay attack. Then IP Security Association, that is IPsec Security Association, we call it as a IPsec SA. So before two parties can communicate securely, they need to establish a security association with each other. A node, which can be either a host or a gateway, may establish IPsec SA with several nodes. An SA is uniquely identified by a combination of a 32-bit security parameter index and the IP address of the connection endpoint. The information in an SA includes lifetime of the association, IPsec mode. It works in two modes. One is the transport and another is a tunnel mode. So that you need to specify. Then cryptographic parameters, the algorithm used for encryption, for computing the integrity check together with the keys. Next is a 32-bit sequence number. The first packet, which is protected by a newly established SA, bears the sequence number 1. The sequence number gets incremented for each new packet set. Then the last one is an anti-replay window. So each IPsec packet contains a value of SPI in its header. This is used by the receiving node to identify the SA to be used for processing the packet. Each node has a database of SAs for all connections originating from or terminating at it. So this database is referred as the SA database. It should be noted that the two communicating parties, A and the B, establish two SAs. One for communication from A to B and another from B to A. Then we'll see IPsec protocols. One is a AH, that is authentication header, and another is a encapsulating security payload. The main difference between AH and ESP is that AH has no provision for confidentiality, whereas ESP provides the confidentiality as an option. These two protocols can be used either in transport or a tunnel mode. So we'll see in the following figures the header which are introduced by AH and ESP and their coverage of authentication and encryption. If you see, the first figure shows how we can make use of a AH in a transport mode. Now we have this transport header, transport payload, then we have added the AH header, then we have added the IP header. Now this is the scope for the authentication, and in this AH header, we have a next header, payload length, unused, this SPI which is a 32-bit in length, and we have a sequence number, then HMAC. The same is available for the ESP also. Now, as I told, ESP provides both authentication as well as encryption. So now this is the part for the encryption which will be considered, and this is the part for the authentication which will be considered. Then we have a SPI, then sequence number, then some sort of padding will be added in the ESP. Then what is the length of the pad, what is the next header, and HMAC. So whatever these two figures are showing, this mode of operation is called as a transport mode because it protects the transport header and the transport payload. That's why it is called as transport mode. The IP security header is sandwiched between the between the IP and the TCP headers. So here message authentication and integrity are provided by the use of a keyed MAC in both the cases. MAC is included in AH header. With AH, the integrity check is computed on parts of the IP header such as the source and the destination IP address. Mutable parts of the header such as TTL, TOS and the header checksum fields are zeroed before computing the HMAC. These fields are zeroed for the purpose of computing the MAC, not during the actual transmission. MAC is included in the trailer of the ESP packet. The MAC field in the IPsec packet is only 96-bit. So only the 96 most significant bits of the computed MAC are actually transmitted. ESP does not provide protection to any part of the IP header in transport mode. Now if you see, ESP is not going to provide any protection for this IP header. So the AH as well as ESP header are going to contain the sequence numbers, which is a 32-bit field, each for the SPI, and a packet sequence number to protect against the replay attack. Then padding is added so that the length of the encrypted payload is a multiple of block size as required by the most encryption algorithms. Padding also helps in hiding the actual length of the data when ESP is used with encryption option turned on. Next, what is the difference between transport and tunnel mode? We'll see. To protect the entire IP header, IPsec has an option called as tunnel mode. Both AH and ESP can employ tunnel mode. If you want to protect the entire IP packet, then you can make use of a tunnel mode. So with encryption option turned on, ESP in tunnel mode encrypts the inner IP header, thus providing limited traffic flow confidentiality. Because the inner IP header is encrypted, an outer IP header is used for routing. So based on the information available in this IP header, that is outer IP header, the routing takes place so as to reach the destination. So the most compelling use of this IPsec in tunnel mode is in securing host to host and host to gateway communication. So now in this figure, we'll see how host to gateway communication and gateway to gateway communication takes place by using the tunnel mode. Now consider the communication between the two hosts A and B, which are available on different networks. Network 1 and a network 2 communicating over the internet. Suppose the security policy detects that a packet entering network 2 should authenticate itself to the incoming gateway D, then A could tunnel its packet to B inside a packet to D. The IP or IPsec headers generated by A are shown in the figure. So now this is the first case, host to gateway tunnel, and second is a gateway to gateway tunnel. The destination address in the outer IP header is D. This header is used to route the packet through the internet. On the receipt of the packet by D, an attempt is made by D to authenticate the source of the packet. If it succeeds, the outer IP header is striped, the packet is decrypted, and the ESP header and trailer are also striped. The inner IP header of the packet is used to route the packet to B within the network. Then gateway to gateway tunnel. The gateway C is responsible for providing authentication and encryption service to all outgoing traffic destined to host in network 2. So in this case, the C would prepend an ESP header and another IP header to A's packet for communication through a secure tunnel between C and D. On the receipt of the packet, D would stripe off the outer IP header, authenticate the source of the packet, decrypt its contents, stripe off the ESP header and a trailer, and route the packet to B. So this is how the communication takes place using the tunnel. Next is the Internet Key Exchange Protocol. The main goal of IKE is to establish an SA between two parties that wish to communicate securely using IPsec. So it is comprised of two phases. In the first phase, an IKE SA is established. This creates a secure channel upon which the communicating parties can then establish multiple IPsec SA instances over time. Setting up an IKE SA is similar to setting up a session in the SSL protocol. It is good security practice to periodically change cryptographic keys used by communicating parties. In phase 1, longer term keys are derived. Phase 1 occurs rarely and is more computationally intensive compared to phase 2. In phase 2, shorter term keys are derived for use between the two parties. This key is a function of the long term key which is computed in a phase 1 together with the nonces which are exchanged in phase 2. So first one in this IKE protocol is the IP security cookies. To prevent denial of service attack, IKE makes extensive use of cookies. One cookie is created by the initiator A and another by the responder B. Phase 1 of IKE uses Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which involves the computationally intense modular exponentiation operation. IKE mandates that B should compute a 64-bit integer called a cookie. Cookie value computed by A includes a hash function of many variables including the IP address of A and temporary secret known only to B and possibly the type. Then A is required to send this cookie to B in all subsequent messages. On receipt of a message from A, B will check to see whether the cookie corresponds to A's IP address. If the check fails, B will abort session establishment. If the check is succeeds, then the further communication takes place. Now, cookie is nothing but a small kind of information about the client or initiator will be stored on the client machine, and the same information can be used to authenticate the client machine IP address. Then IKE phase 1. So in this IKE phase 1, the following are accomplished: the authentication method, encryption, hash algorithms together with the Diffie-Hellman group to be used as negotiated. Then both parties authenticate themselves to each other. Then so many keys are computed here: key S, key A, key E. These keys are used for message integrity encryption respectively in both phase 1 and phase 2. Then cookies are created at the start of the phase 1 and serve the purpose of an IKE connection. Phase 1 uses one of the two modes. One is a main mode, which involves a total of 6 messages exchanged between the initiator and the responder. Another is aggressive mode, which uses only 3 messages for the exchange. Now we'll see the IKE phase 1 main mode, where we are going to see the 3 types of keys will be derived over here. First one is a pre-shared key, private signature key, and private decryption key. So in the first option, if you see here, A and a B share a one secret key. So how that they are going to share the secret key? Here they have shown you the exchange of messages. So here when they takes place this exchange, before that they have already shared a one secret key, yes. The first message contains the cryptographic algorithm proposed by A for use in the IKE Security Association in addition to the cookie, and this is denoted by SAA. The message 2 shows the cryptographic algorithm which are accepted by B, sent from A. Then in message 3 and 4, both sides exchange nonces and Diffie-Hellman partial keys. Now if you see RA and RB, these are the 2 nonces, and G raised to A, G raised to B, these are the 2 Diffie-Hellman partial keys. They will exchange in this 3 and 4th message. Then after the message 4 has been received, A and B independently compute the hierarchy of secret keys such as key R, key S, key A, etc. Now in the second figure, that is private signature key, the sequence of messages exchanged between A and B is similar to the previous case. Here also first it sends the cookie, then a secure association of A, then it accepts the cryptographic algorithm to be used. Then they both exchange the nonces and Diffie-Hellman partial keys. Next, the difference is that the authentication and integrity protection of messages is affected by digital signature on MAC A and MAC B using their private keys. And also A and B dispatch their signing key certificates in message 5 and 6 so the other party can perform signature verification. So here whatever the MAC will be computed over here, it will be encrypted or perform the digital signature by using their private keys, and both are going to send their signing key certificates so as to perform the signature verification. So in the third figure, that is private decryption key, the first 2 messages used with this option are same as the previous 2 cases. The main difference here is that both sides exchange their identities. Both sides exchange their identities earlier in message 3 and 4. Each side generates nonce RA or RP and encrypts it with the other side's public key. Each side encrypts its identity together with the Diffie-Hellman partial keys that is G raised to A mod P or G raised to B mod P with temporary keys KA and KB in message 3 and 4. Then KA and KB are the functions of nonces and the cookies. In message 5 and a 6, each side transmits a MAC. A MAC key is key A, which in turn is a function of the two nonces RA and RB. If A or a B were unable to decrypt the nonce generated by the other side, then they would not be able to compute the correct MAC. So the keys which are going to be derived over here, those are listed over in this slide. KR, 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 then KD, KA, KE, MAC A, MAC B. So what exactly? The parameters which we need to pass it to compute this MAC. And these are the key values. They are going to use it to derive this KD, KE, KE. Next, it's aggressive mode. So the aggressive mode involves only 3 messages. Pre-shared key, private signature key and private decryption key, as there is only 3 message exchange. So the identities of A and a B are sent in a clear in the 1 and 2 message. Then the Diffie-Hellman group is used and the group parameters are decided by A. That is what is done in this message. A computes its partial key and sends it to B in message 1. B has no choice but to quietly accept the group chosen by A. So this is what the thing is done in aggressive method in all the 3 computation of key values. Next is the IKE phase 2. So this IKE phase 2 is used for authentication and encryption as part of the IPsec SE. 2 parties participate in IKE phase 2 exchange in order to establish a new IPsec SA. Either party can initiate this phase in which the cipher suit and the key that comprises the new IPsec SA are agreed upon. So 3 messages exchanged in a quick mode in this IKE phase 2. All messages encrypted using the secret key KE, which is computed in the previous phase. The key for the HMAC is KA, which is also computed in the phase 1. A 32-bit message ID, which is a MID, used to distinguish this phase from the previous one. The MID together with the 2 cookies created in phase 1, that is CA and CB, are dispatched as part of the mess of each of the 3 messages. Then both sides send their proposal for a suite of cryptographic algorithms to be used in the IPsec SA. So these are denoted SA, SAA, SAB. So these all information they are going to exchange in message 1 and message 2. That is MID, then SA of A, nonce, then partial, Diffie-Hellman key, the identity of A, identity of B, and MAC address. To guarantee freshness, both sides also generate and transmit nonces, that is NA and NB. In addition to the agreement on a cryptographic suit, the purpose of this phase is to agree on the secret keys. These secrets are computed simultaneously by both the sides and are a function of KD computed in phase 1 and the nonces NA and B exchanged in this phase. Then they are going to exchange the partial secret keys also. So both sides will then create an entry for new SA in their database of a SA. Then security policy and IPsec. A security policy database is used to determine whether a packet is sent or received, should pass through security, bypass it, or simply be dropped. Such a decision is made based on the fields in the IP and transport headers. These fields called selectors include the destination IP address, the type of transport layer protocol, whether it's a TCP or a UDP, the type of application, which is indicated by transport selectors, which are used to index into the SPD. The output of this lookup indicates whether security should be applied. If so, and if the packet is part of IP traffic that already has an existing SA and a protocol port number, then the SPD returns a pointer to that SA. If an SA does not exist or has expired, then the IKE protocol is used to establish an SA between the sender and the receiver. Then virtual private network, which enables the organization to communicate securely over a public shared network, such as an internet. So there are two types of VPNs. One we call it as a secure VPN, which uses cryptographic techniques to provide not just a confidentiality, but also authentication and message integrity. Then in a trusted VPN, customer traffic is not usually encrypted. Service providers has to guarantee confidentiality of the traffic. Then the most two widely used VPNs are site-to-site VPN and a remote access VPN. This site-to-site VPN are used to link multiple offices of an organization known as intranet. It may also be used to secure an extranet, which is a network connecting multiple business partners. Remote access VPNs connect teleworkers to their offices. So these are the points which I have covered in today's video. Thank you.